screencasting? No? I need to share the screen. Share the entire screen. Okay. I think we are ready here. So if this works, great. All right. So this is InDesign. We use this program to make both the wallflower and to make the yearbook. So I'm going to show you with the wallflower, because we'll never make that again using Weebly. When you go to the wallflower folder, if you scroll down to the very bottom, you're going to see a file that says wallflower template. You click on that, and it's going to open up a blank. Well, it's not quite blank, but it's going to open up a page in InDesign. This is what we use to design our wallflower features. Now, if you had a feature that was really long, we would create a second page, and we would just open up a new file. Now, I've preset the page with a photo box, a text box, a caption box, and a headline. I'm just going to take these things out for now. I'm going to remove them so we just have a nice blank page to work with. I'm going to resave this template so that when you guys open it, you can just have a blank page as well. So it's just I'm going to call this template and blank. Okay. So if you want to reopen it, you should see something kind of like this, just sort of a blank screen. Okay, now there's a lot going on with InDesign, so don't be intimidated by everything that you see here. We're going to show you a little bit at a time. So basic concept is that the design that we're working on has to fit the space that's here, this white square. All right, everything in the gray area is off the page. Now, I'm going to show you two things. The first thing I'm going to show you is how to create text in InDesign. So I'm going to grab the text icon here, and I'll click the button and I'll draw it out. And you should be able to see I guess like a kind of a green-gray square on my screen. Using what we call the black arrow, this is the white arrow here, we call this one the black one, I can move this square or this frame anywhere I want on my page. Now, if I want to put text in it, I could double-click, and you'll see the little blinking cursor, and I could type it in manually, like this, or I could copy and paste from Google Docs or from Microsoft Word, or I could simply put what is called placeholder text just to see what it looks like. And I do that by going type and fill with placeholder text. And it really just gives me gibberish text that I can see, okay, this is how it looks. Maybe I want to put my text like this, and I want to go from left to right. But I've got one big gooey block of text there. It's a bit heavy, so maybe I can break this up into columns. InDesign allows you to do that. Use the black arrow. Click on the text box. Or sorry, click on the type tool here. And then go to paragraph options down here. I can establish, I want more than one column. I'm going to make this 2 columns, or 3 columns, or 4 columns, or 5 columns, or 6 columns. So I can create columns. I can even control the amount of space between the columns. So I can make the columns come closer together, or I can make them go further apart. So I can create what we call the gutters between the columns. All right, so that's 4 simple columns of text. Now, if I want to change the font, if I highlight my text and I go back to this letter A, it's going to show me my font comes in at something called Minion Pro, which is not a very nice font. So we usually use something called Adobe Caslon Pro for the wallflower. We'll see if they have this. Adobe Caslon, no. Right, Caslon. Okay, I might have to add this font here. So maybe I'll just try something like Arial regular. or yeah, Arial regular. Now I've changed the font here. Another way to change fonts, if you highlight the text and then you go to the font name and then use the cursor keys, you can change your font like that. You can scroll through all the different fonts. And in every font, there's different options. So if I go back to Arial regular, there's Arial regular. And down here, I could also choose narrow, Arial narrow bold, Arial bold, Arial black. There's many different versions of fonts that you can choose. Now, we only use one kind of font for the Wallflower, and I'll just have to make sure that we have it loaded onto the computers. But there you go. So that's picking your fonts. You can do other things with fonts. You can change the size of it. Obviously, the default size is 12. But you can increase that size to whatever you want. It's bigger and bigger. Or you can make it smaller. This is 10-point type. I think we use 10-point type for the Wallflower. You can also create a headline. So I'm going to go back to my text or my type tool icon here. I'm going to drag another big rectangle. I'm going to write, this is a headline. And there, it's really small, but I'm going to make it big. I'm going to highlight that. 12-point type, too small. Let's go 60. 60 is too small. Let's keep going. How big can we make this thing? You can make text as large as you want in InDesign. It never loses quality. So it's not like a photo that you can only zoom up so much. You can make text as big as you want. You can make it super massive, and it will always look perfect. Now I can change the color if I want. Well, let me change the font. Let's look at a font that maybe looks good. How about like Impact? Okay. I can change the color from black to whatever color here. Let's say I want to make it magenta. It's like pink. And even there, I can, if I don't like that kind of magenta, I want to change it a little bit. If I double click on the color that I changed it to, I can then pick whatever color I want. So you can change the color just like that. I can center my text. If I go to the paragraph options again, I can center it, or I can run it, justify it right, or go back to left. And that's the same is true for my text here. I can center it, I can run it to the right, I can run it to the left. Easy enough to do. Okay. If I want to do something, you probably noticed on your Wallflower articles that we had quote boxes, or you had like what we call pull quotes. You can make those things in InDesign really easily. Just create another box, copy a bit, let's say a quote from your article, copy it. I'm going to now Control-V, paste it in here. Can put that quote box like this, and then maybe so it stands out, I can make it larger. So let's go up to say type. Maybe we give it a bit of a color so it stands out. That's not a good color. Let's try a different one. Bit aggressive, but it stands out. And so I've got the beginnings of a design, the beginnings of a design. What am I missing? What does every design need? It needs photos. Yeah, photos are needed. So let me show you how to do the photos. So I'm going to make some space for photos. So I'm going to shorten the text box here. I'm going to bring the text box to the bottom, actually. I'm going to bring my headline down here. Maybe I'll leave my pull quote here, but I'll shrink it this way. Okay, let's say I want to put a photo here. The photo boxes in InDesign are these squares with the X drawn in it. Click on that. I'm going to start up here. I'll drag it across there. So I've got a spot for a nice horizontal photo. Now I'm going to go to, now I need to put a picture in there. I'm going to go to File and not Open. Your instinct is probably to go to Open. It's not the right one. It's actually Place. It's File, Place, or if you want to just use the keyboard, it's Control and the letter D. And that's going to immediately open up a file folder on the computer you're at. It's going to say, okay, where do you want to get the picture from? So let's have a look here. I'm going to go back to, I'm going to go with the yearbook folder, 2018 CHS. And I think I have a photo here that I can use. Remember, you can always look at the icons if you're not sure. I'm going to take that one, click open, and the photo will appear in the box. But something happened. What's wrong with the photo? So it's only part of it, right? So where's the photo? Here's the frame, but the photo goes all the way out here. That's what this purple frame is showing you. It's saying, okay, you drew a frame, good for you, but the photo's actually this big. So we need to make this photo fit this frame. So to do that, I'm going to right-click on the frame, and I'm going to go to Fitting. And then some options will come in here. Really, the only one you should use is the first one, Fill Frame Proportionally. What that's going to do is it's going to fill as much of the frame that I've drawn with the photo as best as it can. So I'll click on that, and you'll see now a lot more of the photo. It's not perfect, so if you look above the frame and below the frame, there is still more photo there. And that's where this little bullseye comes in handy. I can click on that, and I can adjust the photo within the frame. All right, so I can center it if I want to do that. Now I've got a photo in the frame. If I don't want my frame to be this big anymore, I click on the frame. I can shrink it down like this. I could do this. I could even bring it in left to right. It's up to me what I want to do. I can do that with the photo. Or I can go back to what I had. So that's how you import a photo into InDesign. You already see even just this simple functions here is already creating what should look like a more professional headline or a professional layout. One thing I want to point out when you're importing photos, this is really important. You click on that little bullseye and then look at the top of InDesign. There's two boxes, one on top of the other. One has an arrow turned right and the other one has an arrow pointed left. And you'll notice a number in each box, and the number is identical. In this case, it's 50.4758, whatever. Right? The numbers are the same. What that means is that this photo is running at about 50% of its normal width and 50% of its normal height. It can be bigger than that. Right? That photo at full size looks like that. It's just the frame isn't big enough for it, so we ran it at 50%. That's all fine. What you can't do with a photo is run it above 100%. Because if you do, let me do this here. So I'm going to run this photo at 200%. What do you notice? Yeah, you see how everybody's pixelated because we've overextended this photo. The photo can't run that big without damaging the photo quality. It won't look good. That's why we don't run pictures over 100%. The other factor in this is the photo needs to be resized in Photoshop first, and it needs to be resized at 300 DPI or 300 resolution, because that's the resolution for printing things. If it's not resized properly, then we won't know its true size. So if I look at this photo here, it was resized to 300, which means when InDesign tells you this is its 100% maximum size, that is actually its 100% size. This photo can be run at this size without any photo deterioration at all. Now, I know you're seeing a little bit of the picture doesn't look sharp. I'll show you how we can fix that. But this is its maximum size, is this giant thing here. That's how big the picture can be. It can't be any bigger than that. It can be smaller. You can run a picture as small as you want. That doesn't damage the picture quality at all. But if you run it above 100, it gets pixely. So here, let me just put it back to the way we had it. And I'll slide it back up here. Okay. One thing we can add, well, here, let me show you, because you see all these frames, these borders on our design, doesn't look very nice. If you want to see what your page looks like without all that stuff, you can by clicking the screen mode up here and going from normal mode to preview. And now you get a sense, oh, this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like without a whole bunch of stuff everywhere. Say, okay, I need to bring my text box in here. Maybe 24 type was too large. Maybe I'll bring it down to something like 18. I'm like, hey, you know, my picture seems to be just sort of bleeding into the background here. What if I put a frame on it? You can do that. Click on any frame, picture or text, and you can add a frame. Right now, this icon here, it's called the stroke, means there's nothing going around the photo. We can change that. We could just go with a simple black, and it will put a 1-point border around the photo. You might have trouble seeing that, but I'm going to zoom in here. You see it now? See that little 1-point border? I can make it bigger, large as I want. That doesn't look good at all, but it's possible. I could also color it, which usually doesn't look good either, but I don't have to go with black. I could go with blue, let's say, and now it'll create a blue border. I can even do this to text. Again, this could be a bit gimmicky, but let's say I want this text to stand out a little bit better. Let's say I've got really pale text. I've got a white background and I'm running text that's like this. Little hard to read, right? A little bit, there's not a lot of contrast there, but what if I took this text and I gave it a very small black border? Now you can read it. Before, couldn't read it. Then with a little black border, we call stroke, suddenly it's easy to read. So if you can think of it in InDesign, you could probably do it, right? It is a program that's about creating elements, pictures, text, adjusting them, moving them around on the page, sometimes adjusting sizes, sometimes adjusting colors. But it's all completely designable. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you today, and there's a lot of things I can show you. I don't want to overwhelm you, but the last thing I'm going to show you today is the concept of layers. So InDesign works with layers, and you should see a box here on the right that says layers. Now, the page has been preloaded. The template's been preloaded with 3 layers. The first one is called headlines and captions. Second one's called layer 2. Third one's called layer 1. I could have given them names. Maybe I'll call this one pictures and text. Okay, and then the last one I'll call background. The layers simply work in a very intuitive way. Which layer is on top? Is it background, pictures, or text, or headlines and captions? Headlines and captions it is literally above the other ones, right? So right now I have all these things I put them all in this layer. But let's try to make something with the background layer. So I'm going to select the background layer. I'm going to use just a text box. I'm going to draw a big box around the whole thing. And I'm going to color it. Somebody give me a color. What do you want? Purple? I heard purple. And let's make it a little more. Give me a second here. I'll make it purple. There you go. That's purple. All right. So doesn't look great, but there you go. Now the purple, is it above the photos? Is it above the text? No, it's below everything. You want to see what it looks like when it's above everything? I'm going to drag it and it covers exactly. So I can change the order of layers. Even though this is called background, I can put it above everything else. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's where you place it. And this is really helpful because you might want to do something like, you might want to write something on a picture. Well, how do you write on a picture? Well, create a text box. We'll create a new layer actually. I'll say like text on pictures. And I can put that above here. And I'm now going to create a little box here. And I'm going to write some text. And I'm going to make it white. It's going to disappear for a moment. You probably won't be able to see it. I'll increase the size a little bit. And it's all gone. But it's there. Now I can take this text and I can put it right over that picture. Because it's above the picture. It's working on a different layer. So I could say like, welcome to school. CHS, that doesn't make any sense, but there you go. So you can now put text over photos. Of course, if I moved that layer, if I move this layer below headlines and captions where everything else is, disappears. Put it above. What if I'm like, you notice like when you try to move your cursor, like everything starts like, you know, like selecting and highlighting. It's like, oh my gosh, I just want to work on one thing. This is where using layers is really helpful. Let's say I just trying to figure out where to put this thing, but every now and then I'm accidentally moving the picture because I grabbed the wrong frame. I can lock all the layers but the one I want to work with. So now the only thing that I select is this. Nothing else can be selected. It's the only thing that I can place. Now, do you guys see these little like yellow lines like sort of firing around everywhere? You see this? Okay. On my screen they look yellow. I guess they look white on here. What do you think they're doing? What's happening here? Like look at right there. What is that line trying to tell me? Not centered. It's not exactly the word we use. It is aligned. So it's like, hey, the middle of your box here is aligned with the right of this column. Or, hey, the middle of your box is now aligned with the left of your column. Or, hey, the middle of this box is aligned with the bottom of this photo, the top of this photo. Why on earth would InDesign want to tell me this stuff? What's the point? You can put stuff exactly where you want. So let's say my picture, I'm going to unlock this stuff. Let's say my picture, let's say I'm going to run it like this. And I'll resize my picture. Okay. I got a picture like this. Let's say I create a duplicate of it. And I want it to run right beside the next one. Well, where is right beside the next one? Hard to say. Watch what happens here. You see that? See the two lines? Plus one is saying this is exactly beside. You've got the exact same height and depth as the next one. Now watch this. I'm going to create another duplicate. This is where it gets really cool. I want to run another photo. Not only do I want to run it at the same height, I want it to be the same distance apart. Watch what happens. You see that little thing at the bottom there? You see the little arrows? You see that? What that's doing is saying these are the same gaps as the other two. Now my photos are exactly the same distance apart. Everything is the same. So InDesign can do some pretty neat stuff, allowing you to create really symmetrical work. So you have a page that is exactly the way you want it to look. And I think those are the basic concepts that I want to cover in this class. It's already a lot of stuff right there. It's a lot of stuff. The general rule with InDesign is if you start doing things like you would do, like if you start using the same kind of design techniques that you would use in Google Docs, you're making a mistake. Because there's nothing that you've ever learned in Google Docs about design that you need to do in InDesign. InDesign has its own tools that are far superior than any kind of word processing program. So you don't need to, let's say we just have the word headline. Instead of, you don't need to hit the space bar to move this word across like this. That's never necessary in InDesign. You just take frame and you shove it over. You don't have, or if you want to move it up there, move it up there. Don't, use the space bar, the return button to move stuff around. Use your arrows to move things around. So I'm gonna close this screencast, and I'll take questions from the classes here. And hope you enjoy watching my YouTube channel. There'll be other videos coming up. There you go. Hope you enjoy this. Hope this actually recorded. All right. I'm going to close this down now. Let's make sure it's still there. Is it still there? Yes, I think it was still broadcasting. Okay, good. All right. We're going to stop this thing. Have a good evening.